exploring different.
Hi, you're listening to The Cell on WGRN 94.1, brought to you by the Faith Thomas Foundation. Hi, this is Felice. I'm glad that you guys were able to join us, and for any new listeners, welcome. As always, before I get started, I'd like to say hello to my producer, which happens to be Katie today. Katie's waving her hand. Once again, remember she's the shy one, but she does have her moments when she will speak up if the subject is really on point. And there's Mr. Ernest Kelly, my host for today.
Good evening and Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for listening in again.
Yeah, and as you know, Ernie is also a producer, and me and him both just love it when we can sit back as hosts, and Katie's here to help guide us on. We tend to get out a lot quicker when Katie's here with us. Today on our show, we happen to have with us Stephanie Briggs, and Stephanie is the founder and publisher of In Spirit Power and Truth Publishing. And how are you doing, Miss Stephanie?
I am doing extremely well. I am very happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. Just like I said, she's a publisher, so that means that she writes books. And Stephanie, I have met her, I do believe, a couple of times at wellness fairs or health fairs, yes, where she's out there promoting her books. It's all about education and things like that. So this should be a really interesting topic here today.
Yes, I'm hoping so.
But, before we really get started, Stephanie,
Okay.
I happen to notice, I do believe, on Facebook, you have also have one of you, they can reach you on Facebook. And we're going to get into all those places where they can reach you out here in a minute. Mm-hmm. And you posted something, and I happen to see my sister's name on there. Oh. And my sister is Kimberly Benberry.
Oh, she recently purchased one of my books.
She said that she did. Yeah.
She ordered my most recent book. It was a pre-order campaign for That's the Story of My Life. And so those people who pre-ordered, they got their books by the Christmas holiday. And those who didn't, the actual book releases in March. So I was so super excited that she supported me on that. So that's wonderful.
I happened to finally mention, I remembered last night, I said, oh, I forgot to ask you, did you know Stephanie Briggs? I said, I'm interviewing her tomorrow. And that's because I seen her tag you on Facebook. And she goes, yes, I think she was 2 years behind me in school or something like that. So I was like, wow, small world.
What school did she go to? Because I went to every school.
She went to Eastmoor.
She went to Eastmoor. Okay, I did go to Johnson Park.
Maybe it was Johnson Park, because she went to Johnson Park too.
Eastmoor, but I did not. But yeah, I did go to Johnson Park.
She went to Johnson Park.
Yeah, so that was probably
where y'all met, where she originally knew you from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she said that she knew you, and I said, oh, great. I said, wish you could come to the interview. I said, but if you can, you can. You can't, you can't.
Yeah.
Well, you must have had an impression on her, because I have a hard time remembering classmates from like Johnson Park, just a grade school, right?
Yeah, it's
middle school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a hard time remembering classmates.
Yeah, I was super popular. No, I'm just playing.
That's cute. Of course, with any author, I do know that the first question is, when did you decide, or when did you know that you wanted to become an author?
Yes, definitely. So that definitely goes back to education and reading. When I was in the 5th grade, I believe, my mom said it was earlier, but when I was in the 5th grade, the teacher was going around and telling all the students, what they would be good at and what they should be. And so she said that I would be a wonderful newscaster or writer. And so I'm definitely an introvert, and I didn't want to be on anybody's news, at 6 o'clock. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. So definitely by the time I was in high school and into college, I was telling everybody, yes, I'm a writer, I'm an author,
So did you start practicing about that time period, maybe doing some short stories or things like that before you finally really got into being serious about it?
Yes, definitely. So actually, I wrote a short story in high school as a senior, and it received like a Lazarus recognition,
Okay.
Something. So that story though is actually in That's the Story of My Life. So oftentimes I'll write something and years will pass. I'll be like, that's still good stuff. Wait a minute. Let me package that and publish it. So definitely. And then in college, I started working on some different novels, and I never completed them. So then I was like, well, wait a minute. Maybe if I write a poem, I can start with a poem and complete that. And so then I wrote my first book, which is In Spirit, Power, and Truth. And it's an acronym for SPAT. And it is a book of poetry.
Okay.
And then after that, I was like, well, let me try some children's books. That can't be too hard. So I have 4 children. So that really helped me because I couldn't do, like the oldest child's book and then not do the next book and not do the next book. So I have the 4 children's books, and then I kind of kept on from there.
So now, since you have 4 children,
yes,
and you have created stories, or you have actually published book about which, because you said each one has helped you.
Yes.
So I know that you have several books. What is what was your inspiration, or what's the title of the book for your inspiration with your first, second, third, and fourth child? I mean, what's the title of each one of those books?
Definitely. So all the books are creative nonfiction. So they definitely pull on their personalities. So my oldest son is Khalil, and he's always loved animals.
So you actually put the name of your children in there, because that's one of the names that I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the names of my children. I worked with local CCAD graduates for the illustrations, and I was like sending them pictures of my kids, like this is how they look. So he loves animals, but he never really liked being told what to do. So his book is just about him exploring what it would be like to be part of the animal kingdom and not have any rules and just do his own thing. And then he realizes, animals kind of have limitations too, so it's not so bad being a boy and listening to his mother. And then
I like that, to his mother.
Yes,
yes.
Mother, yes. So I'm right.
I agree.
And then
that's who they say hello to when they on TV.
Yes.
They don't say hi, Dad. They say hi, Mom.
Exactly. So that's one of the things too that I thought about when I was writing the books. I was like, well, I have 4 children. One of them has got to bring home some money. And then I was like, well, maybe I can, push this forward, and I can just write books about them, and I can make some money off of them.
Yeah.
So definitely. But then I have my daughter Asha. She's always loved school.
I've seen her name in one of the books.
Yeah,
Okay.
so her book is My Favorite Color is Blue. And it just talks about her exploring different occupations and things she can do and become, utilizing education and exploring her world. And I think those are my 2 most popular books. So actually with the books, they kind of go, like the first 2 books are more elementary. So when, parents come up, if they have like 2, 3-year-olds, I always recommend those 2 books.
Correct.
The books get a little bit more intricate. There's a little more dialogue and everything like that as they get older. But older children really enjoy the next 2 books. So the next book is about my son Jelani, and he's very outgoing. He's very sociable. He wants to be the center of the attention, but he's kind of like the middle child.
Yeah.
So he's like, look, if y'all don't pay attention to me, I'm gonna fight the air. So he's fight the air guy.
Okay.
And so he just goes through the book fighting the air because he's not getting the necessary attention, and he's trying to figure out how to fit in and stand out at the same time. But by the end, he realizes and recognizes that he's our superhero. So
wow,
definitely
that's cute.
That is cute. Yes.
All right, what's the next child?
And then Nandi is my youngest daughter, and so all of her siblings dote on her and just treat her so well. And she's like, but but can y'all get along with each other? So that's what her book's about, just trying to give them examples. Like, if your brother wants to play fight, the oldest is like papping you in the back of the head. Instead of getting upset, just play fight with them and, have some fun. If your sister is, watching TV and watching shows, do that, or play sports with your other brother. So she just really acclimates to what they do and tries to use music and stuff to get them to get along.
Just curious. Mm-hmm. Now, you said, how old are your children?
Yes, so my children all just have birthdays, but the oldest one will be 25 in February, and then they're 23, 21, and 18. Boom!
You said
so they are all adults.
You get to live your life over.
Yes, like it's golden.
Yeah, living my life like it's golden. Yeah.
Yes.
That is good. I mean, and to be 25 and to be able to look back and say that my mother wrote a book about me.
Yes.
Now, are your books in the public library? Have you got,
you know what? My books are not in the library. They are available on Amazon and online. And if you order, like if you go to the bookstore, Barnes & Noble, they're online. Or if you order from the bookstore, they'll bring them in. But if everybody under the sound of my voice goes to the library and says, do you have Stephanie R. Bridges books? And, calls those names, they'll order them. So.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many actually has fallen in your footsteps as far as writing poems or writing or?
Definitely. I think they all actually write. The one who pursues it the most is Jelani, and he's actually a rapper, and he does some poetry. Yes, so he's performing and getting into musical festivals, and I want to say he's the dopest. That's the
mother.
name.
That's the mother.
No, that's his name. That's what he's called.
Okay.
The dopest Lonnie.
I thought you
were. Yeah, the dopest Lonnie.
Okay, I can say I want to say he's the dopest. I'm gonna ask that true mother right there saying.
Yes, he definitely is that. But I think that's the name. If you're wanting to check him out, or you're like, oh, I know the dopest.
Go ahead and throw your son some. How can they hear your son?
So he has amazing videos on YouTube. Now, there's some language in there.
Okay.
But yes,
there's several raps that don't have language in it. But go ahead. But you might have the clean version.
I don't know.
No?
Right. Look, thank you, Katie. Katie's like,
don't they have rap?
Don't
they have like clean version? Don't they clean it up or do something like that on? Okay, that's my
He don't let you edit none of the raps.
Oh no! Me edit, Mom, come in and edit my rap music. No, he doesn't do that. He doesn't really try to get
Mom.
No input from you, right?
Clean it up.
Right.
Mom would be cleaning it up.
But yeah, definitely.
There goes your clean version, Katie.
Katie's just shaking her head like
what? Clean version? You ain't heard of clean? I heard of clean versions. There's stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. So when they put stuff on the radio, or if it's like a music, what do they call it? Like the record company. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll have them go in and do a different version. But if you're pretty indie, you put out what you put out.
Right.
It is what it is.
Katie must be pretty indie. Like clean version. Like clean version. Before we go on, let me go ahead and do an identification break. We want to thank everyone for listening to the Faith Thomas Foundation. Well, actually, it's The Cell, which is hosted by the Faith Thomas Foundation, here on WGRN 94.1 FM. We have quite a few things coming up in 2019 as the Faith Thomas Foundation. We have a bowling event that's coming up on April the 16th. I'm getting ready to get the date mixed up. So what I'm going to do is come back to that date. It's April the 13th. We have a bowling event coming up on April the 13th this year. It's our annual bowling. It'll be our fifth one. And then we'll be doing 2 wellness fairs also this year, which will be April the 20th, which I hope that you're coming to, Stephanie. And then also that'll be with Woodward Park Community Center. We will also be hosting another wellness and safety fair on Lowe's parking lot. On July 13th, which is another Saturday. And Stephanie, I hope to see you at that one.
Yes.
And then, of course, our biggest event of the year, which is our annual Red Diamond Gala, is going to take place on September the 6th, which is a Friday. So it's kind of, I always say, it's like happy hour, So after you go to work, you go home and change real quick, and then you come on over to the Boathouse or Confluence Park, as they call it, and have a nice view of the city and enjoy the Faith Thomas Foundation and partying with us that day. So you'll get more information about that, as we continue throughout the year as each, event happens to come up. But once again, we like to thank you for listening to The Cell on WGRN 94.1. We are here with Stephanie Bridges. Go ahead. Stephanie, could you tell us before we get started, because we'll start talking and might not get this information in before the end of the program, and because, it's quite a lot here, that how our listeners can reach out to you.
Definitely. So I am Stephanie R. Bridges on all social media. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And then I also have a website, stephaniebridges.com. And I am doing a reveal on Facebook on January the 15th for another website, which is bridgesbookclub.com. So I'm working on, we've actually gotten started. So if you can join the Bridges Book Club. It's an author-led book club on Facebook, and it's super cool because not only do you have an opportunity to read the book and share your thoughts about that, but the author is there too, accessible, so you can ask them questions and tell them how they should have ended the book, and everything like that. So
okay, when you talk about that Facebook, is it going to be like Facebook Live, or how is that? Are you going to be interacting? Yes.
So the group is the Bridges. Is it Bridges? I don't know if it's the Bridges. No, it's just Bridges Book Club. So it's a group. You can go on anytime. You can join the group. But on January the 15th, I will go live. So I've set up an event to go live and do the website reveal. So we've gotten a lot of excitement and interaction with the Facebook group, and the authors are super excited. So I thought it would be important to kind of pivot and do a website where we can have more authors join, and people who are aspiring writers and authors can come aboard as well. And then we're also going to have resources. So we're looking for businesses to join too, like people who do taxes and insurance and all those things that writers, don't want to have to deal with. And so, yeah.
Okay. It says you have Twitter.
I do have a Twitter, yes. I don't tweet that often. I usually just retweet, something that I've seen. But yes, I'm definitely on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn too, so that's probably really dry. Okay. But you can find me there.
What about you? You do all your social media?
Yes.
You don't have somebody to do it for you. Do it yourself.
No. Do you want to do it for me?
No, I'm just asking.
Wait a minute. He got to take care of over here first.
No, I'm
just Foundation before he come over there and help.
Seems like a lot of.
We might have to fight over that one.
How about you, Katie?
I got to find out if we got him access to the Facebook page. I think Katie requested it, didn't you?
I did. I told Brian.
Yeah.
So I'll request you too.
Like I said, that right there be a fake girlfriend.
Yeah, like she ain't never coming back. Came in and
this ain't yeah. But since just being an author, what are some of your favorite authors? Like, what books do you actually? I know you write, and you tend to write within a certain age group. But what books do you like to read, or what authors do you like to read?
Definitely. So, and the name is like leaving me. The author, Toni Morrison. So I love Toni Morrison's writing style. She wrote The Bluest Eye. That's one of my favorite books. And then she did Beloved as well, which Oprah Winfrey, did the movie of.
Right.
But her writing style is very poetic. So not only do you get the story, like what's going on, and you can follow along with the plot, but you also get, the literary excitement and flow and poetry, through every word and every sentence and every paragraph. So she would definitely be my favorite. I love her work.
Okay. Do you ever read any action, intrigue, international?
I'm not very much into like suspense or, anything like that. I do like reading novels more so than nonfiction, probably.
Okay.
But, sci-fi and different things like that, I don't really,
Well, I'm into I'm not into the sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will go to the darkness once in a while.
Okay.
But I'm mostly into Nora Roberts, Jane, Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into the intrigue, the internationals, and all that suspense and stuff like that. I'm definitely an avid book reader, and I do like to read those things.
Yes. So I will definitely say this. There's, rumors out there that authors read a lot. A lot of authors don't read a lot. But when some authors, so there's twofold. So some people love to read, so they read a lot, they consume. It's a beautiful thing. And then some authors, they read, but it's more so as research, because, they say if you want to write well and if you want to write, then you have to read. So they're doing their, due diligence as far as reading. And then other authors, which I probably fall into the camp of, sometimes I will binge read. But we read something, and it's kind of like a DJ going to the club, and they're listening to the music, and they're like, that's not right. Why'd he do that? Why'd he mix it like that? Why'd he play the song like that? So when you're reading more so from the critical side of, why that doesn't even make any sense, versus enjoying what it is that you're kind of like just the critic. So
what type of books you like to read, Ernie?
I'm not really a book reader per se. I guess after a while I get my mind tends to wander if it's too long. So I like reading magazines, newspapers.
Mm-hmm. Short stuff.
Mm-hmm. Right, articles, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've tried reading. I mean, The Invisible Man by, I think it's Ralph Ellison. I think that was the only book that I can remember reading from front to back, and I was trying to, at the time I read it, I really didn't understand what he was talking about, but as I got older, I understood.
What was it about? I seem like I kind of recall.
Well, it's just basically he was writing. Basically, he wasn't invisible in that sense. Mm-hmm. It was just how he felt that his world, or the world he lived in, perceived him. Because he was a black person and stuff. No, he wasn't really super. He was just writing that he wasn't really being recognized. Mm-hmm. Like people wasn't really. You know what I'm saying? They're not. They was. He was there physically, but in his mind, other people, wasn't really recognizing him. Not for his talent or anything. Yeah. It's just him living, in his community, and that's kind of what I got out of it.
Mm-hmm. Have you read that book?
I have not read that book, but I do agree that, oftentimes we feel like that, like we're invisible. Despite the fact of being in the room or trying to speak up, sometimes we're not acknowledged, and, for whatever reason. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about I know right there. But, how many books have you written?
I have written, I believe, 8 publications. One is an anthology, so I actually wrote a book. It's entitled Keep the Peace, and it's young ladies from the ages of 6 to 60 discussing how to maintain inner and outer peace. And so that book is very interactive, and it has some activities in the back, and there's an opportunity to write your own thoughts down. So I initially started working on that at a middle school, and then, we kind of broadened it out, and so we have the, young to the older. I have a book that is available as a PDF download, and it is about grants. So, it's seeking and securing individual artist grants. So oftentimes we know, nonprofits are eligible for different funding and things like that. But as creatives, sometimes there's not, money out there to do your projects and work on different things. So I try to help people kind of research and find that information and, get some grants. And then the book that I'm currently working on, that's the story of my life that your sister purchased. And then everybody always asks me, since I have these books out, about publishing their own book, and I would share with them the different steps and send them the links and provide them that information. So I said, why don't I do a digital download for that book as well? And so that'll be released before the website goes live, Bridges Book Club, and that's going to be the 10 tiny steps between you and publishing your book.
Oh, I need to read that one.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. You also did a journal for Ohio Sickle Cell Health Association on sickle cell.
Yes, so I was working on a journal with the organization, with Annie Ross Womack, and we haven't gotten to a finish line on that, but that is something that is very dear to me, is this organization, and it has impacted my life, my family. So I definitely want to complete the journal, but I'm also interested in doing a children's story. I actually listened to your radio show when you were talking about how sometimes a crisis can feel like a rubber band, being on your finger, and just having that information and that knowledge of what a child is, really going through and experiencing, and then finding out, where they're able to get some kind of peace and release and how that comes. So I definitely would love to work on a children's book.
Well, Stephanie, tell our listeners how they can reach you again.
Definitely. So you can find me on all social media. I am most active on the gram. I'll be out there doing it for the gram and Facebook. And I am Stephanie R. Bridges. You can check out my YouTube channel too. I love YouTube. So it's Stephanie R. Bridges. And then I also have a website, which is StephanieRBridges.com. And there you can find all of my books. You can find some spoken word. I've written some songs. You can find some music on there, as well as audio books of the children's books. So you can check those out on my website.
Okay. I just also like to let our listeners know that the Faith Thomas Foundation happens to have our radio programs. You can find our previous radio programs on our webpage up under resources called The Cell. And you can also, they're basically created up under YouTube. So you can actually look on YouTube and you can type in The Cell, hosted by the Faith Thomas Foundation. And you can also find our previous radio programs on that also. So with that being said, Stephanie, I'd like to thank you for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And Ernie, my brother from another mother, thank you for playing host with us today.
Thank you. Very informative.
Thanks so much.
And of course, our producer, Katie, we want to thank you for being with us today. And with that being said, peace out. Well, that's the end of today's show. I want to thank you for listening to The Cell on WGRN 94.1. You can find us on Facebook or at faiththomasfoundation.org for more information on our upcoming events. Join us every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. here on WGRN.